Excuse me, I have no sound. Is it just me?
I have no sound either.
Oh, now I do.
Yeah, it was Dave Matthews stepping on the wire.
Thank you.
You can't see me from there? I'll read the resolution. It is moved by Member Hazelton, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of August 16, 2024 as circulated. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the resolution is approved. Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Notice that each application was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons or written agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may also have been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
My apologies for the delay. Through the chair, the subject property has an area of 1.6 acres with a frontage of 57.8 meters onto Crooked Bay of 6 Mile Lake. The property is zoned 6 Mile Lake residential and designated waterfront in both the district and the township's official plans. A site visit was conducted on August 19th. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the construction of a detached garage having a height of 5.5 meters, whereas a maximum height of 4.5 meters is permitted. The reasons for the increased height is to allow for sufficient garage door and ceiling heights for the purpose of storing a boat on the first story and to allow for stand-up storage space on the second story. The proposed detached garage is highlighted in red on the displayed site plan. Compliance with lot coverage and minimum required yards is being achieved. The garage is accessory to the dwelling, not only in terms of use, but massing as well, having a lesser height and ground floor area. Note that the garage will not be visible from 6 Mile Lake due to the presence of a granite rock mound, natural vegetation, and the existing buildings. The proposed detached garage will be located near the extent of the rear property line between the septic tank and Bayview Road. The garage will maintain an appropriate setback from the septic system and will be screened from the roadway by natural vegetation. A detailed analysis of the development proposal against the 4 tests of a minor variance is included in the associated staff report. Based on this analysis, staff are recommending approval of the variance. The committee can either approve or deny the requested variance and can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. 2 letters of support were received from Elise and John Matthews.
Excuse me, could you speak up? I can't hear it. I can't hear it.
Two letters of support were received from Elise and John Matthews and Costa Niktush.
Tom does not have his mic on.
Thank you, Member Hazelton. Can you hear me now? Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address the committee on this application? Okay, is there anything you wish to add to what the planner has provided already? Okay. Is there any member of the public present that wishes to comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shania, can you just confirm the side yard setback? I found it kind of small, the print there. You said it does meet it, but was it only 4 meters away?
Through the chair, the rear yard setback is 4 meters and that is shown on the site plan, whereas the side yard setback is 5 meters. And it looks like on this site plan, they are proposing a minimum of over 8 meters from the side lot line.
Okay, so on the plan it shows, sorry, 4.0 and 4.8. That's the rear. Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Matthews, seconded by Member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A24-40 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 452 Bayview Road to facilitate the construction of a detached garage permitting the following. 1. An increase in the maximum height of a detached garage to 5.5 meters, whereas section 4.1.15 requires a maximum height of 4.5 meters. And that the above approvals are subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the proposed detached garage be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions as set out in the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And the motion is carried unanimously and the application is approved. Our next application is A24-42 for 16 Red Wing Lane, Honey Harbor. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the subject property has an area of approximately 2,300 square meters with a frontage of 34.6 meters on Georgian Bay within the Honey Harbor coastal waterfront community. A combination of trees and hedges are located along the side property lines. A site visit was conducted on August 22nd. The lands are designated waterfront within the district and township official plans, zone shoreline residential type 1, and abut the Honey Harbor wetland, which is provincially significant and contains type 1 fish habitat. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to permit a fence exceeding 2 meters in height within the required side and rear yards. The fence has a length of 6.09 meters or 20 feet and a height of 2.48 meters or 8 feet 2 inches to the top of the post. Section 416 of the zoning bylaw permits fences having a height of 2 meters or less in any required yard, except for the required front yard on waterfront properties. It is staff's understanding that fences exceeding 2 meters in height are not permitted in any required yard. Fences that exceed 2 meters in height are therefore subject to the minimum yard provisions of section 4.1.7, known as accessory buildings or structures yard requirements. A fence is defined as a barrier enclosing or bordering a field, yard, lot, etc., which is used to prevent entrance, to confine, or to mark a boundary. The intent of provision 4.16 is to permit fences for privacy and enclosure purposes along property boundaries that are of a rather standard size and do not disturb the natural shoreline area or block waterfront views. The purpose of limiting the height of fences is to allow for them to serve their purpose while creating visual unity amongst communities and preventing them from becoming excessively tall, prominent structures, which can lead to obstructed visibility and sightlines, sunlight being blocked, and can create a sense of segregation. The fence subject to this application is situated above an armor stone outlined garden, for which it forms a backdrop for, and because of such is 0.48 meters higher than permitted. Considering this information, the fence being located in the rear yard, and the rather short length of the fence, staff are of the opinion that the proposed application maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. As outlined in the associated report, staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variances to the zoning bylaw being requested and are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from the chief building official stating she has concerns if 0.45 meters will be enough to service and construct the fence, and they will not be able to access the owner's yard to do so. One letter was received from the Severn Sound Environmental Association stating the property is outside their zones, therefore they cannot comment. One letter was received from Samantha Phillips stating that they are not opposed to having a fence in that location if the height is less than 2 meters. If the fence exceeds 2 meters, they wish the bylaws regarding setback distances be upheld.
Thank you very much. I can see that the applicant is present. Mr. Lobermeyer, is there anything that you wish to add to the comments that have been made by the planner?
Actually, not really, like, I think.
I could just ask you to turn on that little button there
Oh,
and
wow, I never
just
felt like that.
so you can introduce yourself, but we understand that you're
Okay.
Mr. Lobermeyer from.
My name is Dieter Lobermeyer. I live in Honey Harbor for over 45 years and be an honorable taxpayer and never had a problem with the township. And I like to really, when you look at the design, what I created on my property, I think speaks for itself. I have no intention to harm the environment. I have no intention to do anything. I had positive comments from my neighbors. They would say, like, every time they walk by, they say, like, it's beautiful. Can I sit down and look at it? And except for one neighbor. And that's pretty well everything I have to say now. If there's anything else I have to add, I'd like to do that at the end.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and please remain there in case there are any questions from the committee. And I would also ask, is there any member of the public present that wishes to address this application? Yeah, please come forward and key the mic and identify yourself, please.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hello, I'm Samantha Phillips, and you guys received, I think, Shania, I was in communication with Shania kind of over the last couple of weeks regarding this application.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Samantha Phillips.
Samantha
I was
Phillips?
one of the previous
Okay.
complainants.
Thank you.
So I'm here with my father, and he's the property owner of 18 Red Wing Lane, which is the property immediately to the west of the subject property. So I think before we get into, I have a couple comments, questions about the design and kind of in relation to the height and the setbacks, but as well as the notice that we received did not include all of the provisions that we're talking about today. There was provision 4.1.6 was not included in our notice. So we were not aware that that was already exceeding the height. We thought it was only a setback distance. So us and I assume our neighbors are not aware that this is an actual concern.
Okay. And the fact that that information wasn't there, do you think your neighbors were not aware that the height of the fence was outside the requirements?
Yes, I think that we knew that the setback was a problem, and there was two, right, from the road line and as well as the interior lot line, but we were not aware that that was a subject to change, was the height, 2 meters.
Okay.
We thought 2.48 was
so
allowed.
What is your question to the planning department then?
well, I would like to receive a different notice that that's actually subject to approval.
Okay, it's a little late to get another notice that, we're,
I agree, but then we can't approve that request, right? It wasn't actually notified of what's actually being requested to be approved today.
okay. I will defer that to plan. You have a comment, Shania?
Through the chair, the notice does say exceeding 2 meters in height. However, it was clarified in the staff report that was published a week in advance of the hearing, and I do have email correspondence with Samantha Phillips referring her to the report where there was photos, details, and an analysis of the variances.
Okay. So it's staff's opinion then that proper notice was given on this application?
That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna argue with that.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any other comments you'd like to make, Ms. Phillips?
I think the comments regarding this change was that it's an existing fence, right? So the fence was built not to bylaws. So we did file a complaint before the construction was complete regarding the height, as we did have a concern with that height. So we spoke with the bylaw officer at the time when I guess the posts were in, not the whole entire fence, and we did file a complaint. He did agree that the height was exceeding. So we did want to stop the construction before it already proceeded too far along that we would have to make a change. So we tried to kind of address this sooner rather than later. And now that the fence is up, I understand that if it's not approved, it's kind of a pain, right, to take it down, whether you have to cut it or whether you have to relocate it. I get that. But we did try to make a complaint prior to this application to avoid this whole process.
Okay, is there some other reason why you find that there's a problem with that fence? Is it obstructing your?
I think there's a
view?
number of reasons. I think when I read the bylaws, I understand them to the point that everyone sort of has to follow them, and there's exceptions to every rule. I'm not against that. However, what is the purpose? What does the 4.8 meters serve, or the 0.48 meters serve? What's the function of that? Why can't it be 2 meters in height? And then we're fine. What additional value does that have? Right, 2 meters and that extra distance for us, it makes it prettier, it makes it nicer. You can see over the fence. We've had complaints from our neighbors that they can't see us coming out of our driveway, which causes a bit of concern, especially in the wintertime when you kind of only have one lane of driving distance, if you will. So there could be an accident waiting to happen in that regards. And in terms of the setback, it's similar to the other comments received. It's the maintenance and repair of the fence without coming onto our property. 0.4 meters, I think it was, is pretty small to squeeze into. I'm a small person, and I can't imagine with a wood trying to hammer that in without encroaching on someone else's property. So just additional setback allows the visibility, allows the maintenance of the fence, and it makes it nicer to have just a regular standard 6-foot fence that or 2 meters, 2-meter fence that we're all used to having in a residential neighborhood. Unless it serves a function, by all means. If it serves a function, I can see if it's blocking a piece of equipment and it needs to be higher for noise reasons, that's understandable. But I don't understand the value of that extra height.
So you feel that a shorter fence, would that allow you better visibility, or if the fence was built to the proper height, would that offer you better visibility?
I think it would offer better visibility, especially better visibility in terms of the setback, like I said. So reducing the height, I know the rocks are there, and Shania had mentioned that there's rocks, but the rocks can be moved. If you just push the rocks and lower the fence, there is a solution to maintain the zoning bylaw. Yeah. My father was just mentioning that that it is on a grade. It's on a slight grade, so it's 8 feet tall on one end and about 9 feet tall on the other end, right? Just because of the slope, the natural slope of the land.
Okay. And so then your main concern then is visibility?
I would say is visibility, appearance, right? Like I get the purpose of it's not to create segregation. Shania had mentioned that little blurb, right? What she said, that not to maintain segregation, to allow for inclusive kind of community. And a fence obviously does that, but there's no need to have it half a meter higher. Like.
Okay. Is there anyone else other than yourself and Lobermeyers that share that section of the driveway?
No, it's just us.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other members of the public that wish to comment on this application? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion of the application and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And we will begin with Ms. Ribbett.
Yes, thank you. It certainly is a congested area that you're in. I understand that. I just have a couple of questions pardon me?
Can you speak up?
My mic is on.
You have to speak louder for,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear
Can you hear me
you,
now?
but Mr. Lobermeyer was mentioning before that it was difficult to hear, so
Okay, thank you.
let's make sure you can hear us.
I understand the area is very congested. Beautiful, by the way. Construction's lovely. The neighborhood's lovely. I have a couple questions. First of all, did the fence require a permit? Is my first question. This versus a variance, did it require a permit? Did it have a permit? My second question is there a hardship in meeting the setback in the first place? Those are my two questions that I'd like
And
that I
you're-
need to have answered to help me.
Are
with
you
my-
directing those to planning then, those
Well, I'm
questions?
through the planner? Is a permit required? The building department's here. Thank you.
Okay, we have a representative from the building department. Ms. Nicholson, please respond.
Thank you. Through the chair, building permits are not required for fences.
Thank you. And I guess through the planner, did the applicant was there any indication of a hardship? Because I can't see evidence of a hardship at the property that would avoid it meeting the setback.
Through the chair, whether there is hardship experienced is not a test for a minor variance. The applicant does not have to demonstrate that they're experiencing a hardship to apply for a variance. In terms of the design, I believe those questions can be directed to the applicant.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments? And then just so that we're clear, Mr. Lobermeyer, the committee member had asked if it's possible for you to lower the height of the fence so that you're in compliance with the bylaw. Have you considered that?
It's not. First of all, I want to make a point here. At the beginning, I called the township and I said, I like to replace some old rocks we dug out when we built our building. And we use them as at the front of where the new stones are. And they said, no problem, if you replace those rocks with the stones, what you see in the picture now, there is no problem. Then, so we put that there, and I called in, I said, I want to build something on top of the rocks. It was okay. Then we had a complaint from our neighbor, and the township came out, and the sheriff from the minor variance or so, he came out and looked at the thing, took some pictures, and I have the pictures here, and we had the first post of the height already established. And he looked at it, and the guy who built the wall explained in witness of 3 witnesses, in front of 3 witnesses, what he had planned. And the sheriff from the township said, go ahead, this looks good, yeah, you go ahead. So they built the wall. A week later, the township knocks at our door or puts a note in between our door and said, oh, the fence has to come down. And I asked him, I called him up, I said, what are you talking about? And after a week, everything was established already. They said, oh no, this is no good. And we have to, like I could have brought the 3 witnesses or 2 more witnesses that he said, you go ahead, you can build that wall. Why didn't he put a stop on it and say, we got to clarify the height first? No, he went home and looked in his books. Oh my God, I made a mistake after a week. Now he's got to pay for it, and I got to pay another $3,000 to lower the wall. I don't think that is fair. And with the interference, when you come out of our property, I don't know where she pulled that out of what drawer. There is no interference whatsoever. If I drop the wall by 50 centimeters or 20 inches or something like that, the height is still there, and when you sit in your car, you still can't see the traffic coming down. And Red Wing Lane is no traffic. There's maybe 2 or 3 cars a day coming by, and that's the end.
Okay. The here's where I see it, Mr. Lobermeyer. The fence is taller than what the bylaw allows. How it got to be that tall, we don't have any history on that at this point, other than some comments that you just made.
But we got the permit for it. The gentleman told us, you go ahead and build your fence.
I understand there's no permit.
It was explained to him exactly what we had planned,
Yeah.
and we showed him plans. It was all there. And he said, yeah, looks good.
We were just informed by the building department that there's no permit required to build a fence. So did you get a document from the township saying it was okay to build a fence at that height?
No, verbal. He came out verbally and said in front of 3 people,
Okay.
he said, looked at it, and the height was already established. The cement was set, the
Yeah.
post was there, and we have pictures here.
The problem that we have as the committee, Mr. Lobermeyer, and we would do everything we could to help you with this, but we don't have any documentation from the township telling you that it was fine to go
I
ahead
have
with that.
3 people, they don't lie.
Well,
They come and say, we
but-
got the
okay.
okay, and so we went ahead. I would have never said, go ahead anyways. I would have never said that.
I appreciate that. You're going to need to lower the fence by the sound of it, depending on what the outcome of this committee is. And I think you need to take that into consideration and, ensure that you fall within the guidelines of the bylaw. The other issue that's here is the setback. And it is within the purview of the Committee of Adjustment to allow that setback. But if you're going to be doing some construction on that fence, having seen what you have there, it to me wouldn't seem to be that big of a deal to move those stones. Lower the fence, move the stones, and then you're in compliance on all angles. So I'm going to, if there are no further questions or comments, I will defer to the members of the committee for their opinion. I will read the application, read the resolution, and we will take a vote, and based on the outcome of that vote, we'll determine what has to be done about that fence. Right after we hear from Member Schmidt. Well, I had asked her if there were any further comments, and I didn't get any.
Okay, then from my perspective,
Okay.
I just had
But
those
Louise,
questions.
please speak up, Mr.
Sorry, yes. So those questions were my questions help me to make my decision. From what I'm hearing and from what I've seen, there's a couple things. There's 2 issues. It's too high and it's too close. Perhaps if it met the setback at least, that would reduce the impact of the extreme height, or if there's no argument about the fact that it's so close to the other property line, it would have to be dropped down and perhaps cut back. Because I can see that, from my perspective, in my background is risk management, there are some view restrictions that fence has caused. So I would either like to see you meet the setback, or you make it smaller and maybe just cut it back a few feet so that it's not impeding the access, because
It doesn't impede to anybody's access. The access to his property is, I would say, about 40 feet wide. Mine is maybe 10 feet wide. Where's that impeachment of access to your property?
Mr. Lobermeyer, I'm
Okay.
Thank you. So my impression is it either needs to be reduced and cut back if there's no dispute on the setback, or the setback should be met. And perhaps if the setback were met, the additional height would not be such a problem. So I would like I can't approve it as it is, but if there was an option to defer it to something that they could agree with, that would be good to see.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ms. Wallingford.
Through the chair, I just want to provide some clarification on the zoning bylaw. So if the fence was 2 meters in height, he could build right up to the lot lines, the rear lot line and the side lot line. The only reason why he's triggering a variance here is the height. And because of that height, he's now subject to the same setbacks as an accessory building, which is 5 meters and 4 meters respectively. So I just wanted to clarify that if he does drop it to 2 meters, he can actually move it closer to the lot lines.
Okay.
And just
just
have
on
that
that
clear.
subject, what is the difference between what exists and what would get it? How much does he have to lower the fence to get to the 2 meters?
Through
18.
through the chair, it's 0.48 meters. The height of the fence would need to be 2 meters for him to have a 0 meter setback to the side and rear lot lines.
So 18 inches. Okay, Member Schmidt.
So if he reduced it by 0.048, he could move it closer to the property line.
It can stay where it is. It's the,
No, but I'm just, the point is that it could be moved over exactly to the property line by reducing this much. And it's unfortunate that I hate when I see two neighbors that are at this state right now. And I guess really the issue that is being triggered is the front post is not on top of the armor stone. If the fence was on top of the landscaping that's already existing there, that would be your mark that you would be measuring from. If that was a hump in a hill, if it was a knoll, this fence could be up another 2 feet if the grade was raised.
is that correct?
So the only issue that's happening right now is the exposed 6x6 post at the extreme extremity of the property line. If that was backfilled and brought up to the height of the armor stone, we wouldn't be in this building right now. That's the reality of this fence being here. The thought of that being torn down, landscape rocks, ripped out, moved for this much, I'm struggling.
Thank
That's
you.
my 2 cents.
So,
No,
okay.
okay. Member Schmidt, Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess just a little further to Member Schmidt, Shania. If I understand what you're saying, if they backfilled to the height of the armor stone, that's where the height of the fence would start to be measured from.
Through the chair, that is correct. It is
So it's-
measured from grade. So if they were to raise the grade, that would then technically change the height of the fence.
Okay.
And how much of a slope would it need, or would it just be brought up a little bit beside it, like,
If a stone was put under it,
or just another stone?
Through the chair, I believe if one additional armor stone, maybe 2 were added to make it to that far post, then the height would then be measured from the top of the armor stone.
Thank you.
okay. Just a question for our planning department before I read the resolution. If this application were deferred and the applicant was to raise that post that Member Schmidt had mentioned so that it's no longer required, what happens after that? Does the application then go away? Like, I'm just looking from a procedural standpoint as to how that might be handled, and I see our Director of Planning is here, Mr. Whitlib. Would you care to comment on that?
Through the chair to the committee. So if the application was deferred and alterations were made to the fence or to the grade to bring it into compliance with the zoning bylaw, then the applicant could withdraw the application. He would not be eligible for a refund of the application fee. The application fee pays for the process, the public hearing, etc. But the need for the variance would go away. If I could offer the committee sort of a further comment to perhaps help them in their consideration. You heard from Planner Juan for that it's the additional height that essentially triggers the setback. If the height was in compliance, we do not regulate fences, we do not require building permits, other than we regulate their height. So if it complied with the height, it could be up to 0. It could be right up to the lot line, no setback required. So I think it might assist the committee to consider it this way. So if not for the height, a fence is permitted at 0 setback. Perhaps the committee should consider then, what is the impact, if any, of the additional height under the current circumstances, and that does that change anything in terms of visibility, traffic impacts, the use and enjoyment of the neighboring property, the appropriateness for the development of this property, those sorts of considerations. So if not for the variance, consider what is permitted, and does the increase in height change those impacts or create a situation that would be undesirable?
Thank you for that. My understanding then is that if that post was cut off at the bottom and replaced by a stone, it would then make that fence compliant. Am I correct in that? Okay, everybody's in agreement. So the action then of the committee on this particular application would be to defer it, give the applicant the opportunity to cut that post and put a rock under it, and then the things that are contravening the bylaw would go away. Do you understand that, Mr. Lobermeyer?
So I got it cut off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Through the chair, if we could read the resolution and see if it's passed, that would be ideal. As opposed to, and unless there's an appetite for a deferral, I don't see the need.
Other than the fact that we are, if we read this and approve it, we are we're allowing the fence to stay as it is, and I don't think that's what the intention is.
It's not going to change.
Yes, it is.
Sorry? No, but if we approve this, we don't need to make a change. And that's not what the intention is. The intention is to make it compliant by putting a stone under that first post.
But if he puts a stone under it, it still has the same visual.
So,
Member Predko has his hand up.
okay, Member Predko?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I mean, my view on what we're listening to and what we've been discussing, if we are deferring this and asking the applicant to make a change by installing a rock for maybe $1,000, I don't know how much it's going to cost, he's going to then withdraw his application and lose the money that he's made for this minor variance application. I think if we vote on this application and the net result of that fence is going to be no different than allowing him to make a structural or a visual change to the landscape, that change may not be in favor of the neighbor anyway. So I would not be in favor of deferring this. I think if we're going to decide it on its merits, it's regardless of whether or not we change the rock or add some fill to improve the grading, we're going to be asking this resident to incur more cost and lose his application fee, as opposed to accepting, potentially, if the committee agrees, that his application is minor in nature, and these modifications that are being suggested don't change the application today, and that we should continue voting on the minor variance application.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. And Member Jarvis?
Actually, I think Councillor Hazelton had his hand up before me, if you don't mind.
Okay, Member Hazelton?
Yeah, I would like to first of all indicate that what I've heard from our planning department for both Planner 1-4 and our Director of Planning is strong support for this application. I think the way I would like us to all look at this is this. The top of the fence isn't going to change. The length of the fence isn't going to change. The only thing that would change is that the applicant might have to put a rock in there to make it look like the height of the fence is different. But visually, height and length and location, nothing is going to change. How can we possibly deny this? It's beyond my comprehension why we're wasting time talking about it. Approve it and let's get on with things.
Member Jarvis.
I'm finding myself in agreement with the previous comments. I think it's unfortunate the neighbors have not been properly informed, feel they haven't been properly informed, but I don't see anything, I don't see us changing anything here that's going to make a difference to what ultimately gets done there, except that there's more expense for the applicant, which I think is totally unnecessary. So I'm happy that I would prefer that we voted on this on its own merits as it stands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I think we're on the same page. So with that in mind, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A24-42. 1. Pardon me. A fence having a height of 2.48 meters in a required yard, whereas section 4.1.6 permits fences 2 meters or less in height in any required yard. 2, a fence having a setback of 0.45 meters from the interior side lot line, whereas section 4.1.7 permits a setback of 5 meters from the interior side lot line. And 3, a fence having a setback of 0.30 meters from the rear lot line, whereas section 4.1.7b permits a setback of 4 meters from the rear lot line. And that the above approvals are subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the fence be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, and we have 2 hands online. The application, the resolution, a motion is carried, the resolution is approved. So thank you very much. Our next application is A24-36 for 7008 Severn River Shore. To the planner, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just bear with me for a minute. We're just having a couple of technical difficulties. Share my screen.
That was interesting.
Where am I going?
When you're asked,
okay.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next application is A24-36, the property being 7088 Severn River Shore. The owner is Gary White. Sorry, I apologize for that. I can't even talk this morning, apparently. The subject property known as 7088 Seven River Shore, is currently comprised of 0.27 hectares with a frontage on the Trent Severn waterway of approximately 19.81 meters or 65 feet, according to the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. The portion of the shore road allowance in front of the subject lands is not in the ownership of the applicant. An application for a minor variance was received by the township on July the 12th, 2024, following a review of an application for a building permit. The building permit was submitted as a result of the owner being issued an order to comply on November 8th, 2023, for the construction of 2 sheds and a deck without the benefit of a building permit. During the review of the building permit for zoning compliance, it was noted that the structures and deck were not in conformity with the provisions of the zoning bylaw. The owner was advised that a minor variance would be required if the intent was to retain the structures in their current location. Although these structures are existing, they were constructed without the benefit of a building permit and will be considered under Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. Under subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act, the tests for the application are: number 1, meeting the general intent and purpose of the official plans, meeting the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, being minor, and being desirable for the appropriate use or development of the subject lands. The requests for an increase in the minimum interior side yard setbacks and an increase in a maximum cumulative area of a freestanding deck must pass all 4 tests for the committee to approve it. Section 4.1.7 of the zoning bylaw provides the provisions relating to accessory buildings or structures yard requirements. The 2 tool sheds were constructed without the benefit of a building permit and placed on a freestanding deck. The property is a heavily vegetated property abutting crown land to the south and a large residential parcel to the north, with the existing dwelling being closer to the waterfront area of the lot. The 2 sheds are in a less intrusive location based on the surrounding properties and likely not visible from the property to the north. The 2 tool sheds were identified as sleeping cabins in the order to comply issued by the Deputy Chief Building Official. Upon submission of the minor variance application, the owner disputed that they are in fact accessory sheds. The subject lands are not large enough, being 0.27 hectares, to meet the provisions of section 4.114, and therefore a sleeping cabin is not permitted on the subject lands. The owner has advised the township that the intended use is for storage sheds. Staff are recommending approval of the application based on the relevant policies, as the proposal is consistent with the PPS, meets section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and does represent good planning. To ensure the 2 structures are only being used as tool sheds, staff are recommending, as a condition of approval, that a restrictive covenant be registered on title prohibiting human habitation in the 2 tool sheds prior to the issuance of a zoning certificate and building permit. Although the 2 tool sheds are existing, this has no effect on the recommendation by staff to approve the minor variance, as the new structures should be considered new structures based on the lack of building permits being issued.
Has there been correspondence in this application?
Yes, there has been. 1 letter of support was received from Mike and Dana Lust.
First of all, thank you very much. I'll identify myself as Gary White, and I've got my wife of over 40 years beside me.
And my name is Cheryl.
First of all, I want to thank everybody on the committee for their time. This is, very much appreciated, and apologize for putting you through this. In particular, I want to give recognition for Deb McCabe for her patience. The process of going through all this is challenging for someone who's not a builder, who likes to pick up a hammer on the weekend. So we received lots of support from Deb and her team, from Cassandra, Dave, and Denise. What I really want to address is, how did we get here? You have a beautiful place here on the Severn, and I think that
you know, it's something here that we value, and it's a dream, and I want to share a little bit of that dream, and I will be quick, Mr. Chairman. My university roommate purchased a cottage on the Severn in Russian Bay, and we had the privilege of using that for 10 years, and we had a dream of purchasing one someday. It gets emotional. Sorry. 30 years ago, we did purchase that and realize our dream. And we have one daughter and a new son-in-law. We went to cottage life shows, and they, you know, they have these sheds, build kits, and there's new regulations or understood regulations. You could have them 10 by 16 without a permit. And we elected, my daughter and I, to build this. My wife was on a cancer journey at the time, and I'm really thankful she's doing well. And so we took this on. We carried every single board across the water, where boat access, and build that. We're fortunate. A member of your committee came out and saw the structures that we built in the granite. 60 bags of concrete. My daughter and I carried up, and Tony saw that it's well built. So, you know, we got here because we didn't think that we were doing anything wrong. And so, you know, the sheds are already built, as the pictures indicate, and we're asking for CalFIR review and consideration, you know, to put joy back in the particular place on the Severn. It has been stressful. It caused our family a lot of anxiety. Yeah, go ahead.
May I say something?
Yes, if you'd move the microphone over, that would be great.
As I said earlier, my name is Cheryl White, and I also want to express my thanks and appreciation for your time and in reviewing our variance. And one thing that I wanted to add is that the location of the sheds was strategically planned to not create any visual distraction or interference to our neighbors, and to distract from the beauty of that you get to see of our bay and the Severn River.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public present that wishes to add comment to this, either present or online? And I see no hands up. So with that, I will close the public session portion of this hearing and bring the matter before the Committee of Adjustment members for any questions or comments. And we will begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A comment and then a question to our Chief Building Officer. Clearly, the view from the canoe is not going to be affected by the way you've set these buildings quite a ways back in your backyard. So that's encouraging. The buildings are 10 by 14, and you need a permit anything over 100 square feet. Is that correct?
Through you, your chair. There's a couple issues here. I haven't been to site, unfortunately. So they were correct in saying you do not need a permit for a shed. The province updated, I think that was this year or last, that you do not need it for 15 meters squared, which is 160 square feet. But the only use of that can be a shed. Cannot be a sleeping cabin, cannot be anything else other than for the use of storage. When you start adding decks onto it, now you're outside. If it was 10 by 16, now you start adding decks on it, it needs a permit. No longer does it not, so the entire structure would need a permit. From looking at the pictures, there's two buildings, and I do believe they're connected by a deck. Is that correct? So obviously we put an order on it because the entire structure does need a permit.
Okay, I was leading to the deck because it didn't look like the height necessarily would needed a permit, but because it's connected to the two buildings, it's considered as one fairly large structure.
You're correct.
Whoa, thank you so much.
Okay. Member Jarvis.
To Deb, I'm looking at the last page of the report that shows the property lines and the setbacks from the property lines of the two sheds. But it also seems to indicate that the cottage is over the property line. Have I got that? Am I looking at that correctly?
Remember, Jarvis, the last page,
The very last page of the report that was issued, yeah.
like the pictures?
No, it's not a photo. It's a diagram. It shows the setback on either side of the sheds. And then but it also shows the cottage, and the cottage seems to be over the lot line significantly. I showed us page 17 and 17 in the report.
Yeah, I'm not getting that. That says page 40,
Yeah.
16. 49. Oh, there we go. That's another one. Oh, that one. Oh, I apologize for that, Mr. Chair. It's quite possible. I mean, that house has been there for quite a long time. I mean, it would be, I mean, I didn't even look at the house, to be honest, because that's not what we're dealing with. So, I mean, if nothing's changing on the house, there was no need to look at it, so.
And the question follow up to that is that the property that's Crown land? The adjacent, is that the adjacent property that's Crown land?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to make a sort of a quasi-related comment. We had another issue at Planning Council a little while back where somebody had built put a building on their back deck and called it a shed, but it was obvious as being slept in. And we had to come to some agreement on that, and the covenant is what was finalized on that one, so they could not use it as a sleeping cabin. It was in a more obvious location on an island where you could see it from the water, view from the canoe type of situation. And there are a few of us who are very upset the whole thing had happened in the first place. These things, it's always sort of after the fact that we find out we've done things incorrectly. I have a question for the applicants themselves. When they purchased the sheds at the Cottage Life Show, were they advised, not that it matters, I'm just curious, were they advised by the people selling them that those sheds, that they would have to determine with their local planning authorities on what would not be allowed?
Just for some clarification, thanks for the question. We did not purchase at the Cottage Life. We built them ourselves.
Oh, excuse me. Okay.
But we got the ideas from that. If you look online and you do have those discussions, no, they do not advise that to be able to for the building permits. Very clearly in the Ontario MISPEC 10 by 16, you're allowed to build a shed, and I can show you where that regulation is.
Well, I know that because I'm going through the same process. So,
it creates a challenge for people.
Yeah, while I'm not keen in general terms of cabins being built on properties like this. They're far enough set back that I don't think anybody's gonna have much of an issue with it, but it's in my opinion. Thanks.
Okay, any further questions or comments? We have 2 members online. I don't see any hands up there. Very well. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe. Well under the lot coverage with these 2 buildings and deck.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, just a sort of a summary comment here about this particular application. I think it's obvious to everybody here that these buildings were built by the applicant without any consideration for the township bylaws or the concerns of that the building department might have. It was stated in the order to comply that the building inspector saw that those were being used as bunkies. And as you found out, I guess, through this process, having accessory buildings like that on the property are not allowed. Had you done some research or contacted the township, you would have been made aware of that before you started construction. So the concern I have as a member of the Committee of Adjustment, that this entire construction project was done without any consultation on your part with the township. And at this point in the game, the members of the committee are being asked to overlook that and basically go ahead and even though you built 2 bunkies and a deck that are not allowed by our bylaws, that we disregard the bylaws as you have. And also, we have no idea at this point, you know, what methods that you use to construct those, so that all the safety and concerns that are provided by the building department have been overlooked. So I find it difficult for us as a committee to just set those aside and approve the application. That doesn't mean that your options are that you have no other options. You know, you still have all those materials that you carried out there. You have the opportunity to apply to the township for the proper permits and you know, if you needed an exception in order to build either a bunkie or a woodshed or a workshop, whatever it is that you're planning on building, then you could deal with that at the time and have the building department approve, inspect and approve the drawing, so that you know that when you finish that project, it's done properly and it's safe for the people that are going to be occupying it. So I see our building chief building official has a comment on that. So
To you, Chair, just a bit of a clarification. They still will require building permits if this does get approved.
even though the
Yes, there's still a whole process that will be required. It doesn't end here.
so how do you go back and ensure that the proper?
That's all up to us. You don't need to worry about that, but that's us. We'll deal with that.
Okay. So I don't need to worry about the building department. I don't need to, you know, is there a concern about the bylaws that have been overlooked as well? You know, that's what my concern is. You know, we get up applications submitted after the construction is completed, and you know, by approving those, are we not doing just that, overlooking, you know, the bylaws that are in place? That is my opinion. We have several members of the committee that are free to express their own concerns. And with that, if there are, Council Hazelton, I didn't notice that. All right, Member Hazelton, please proceed.
Thank you. So just Councillor Jarvis brought up something that I think is relevant here. Sadly, we keep getting examples of people who have gone off and built things without permits. And although there is a desire to punish because it is something we really want to try to find a way to stop, I don't really know how we go about stopping it. And I'm comfortable with what I've heard from our chief building official that the building department will be weighing in and controlling things going forward. I'm uncomfortable that we have this in existence, but I think the statement that Councillor Jarvis mentioned earlier, which was something recorded on title saying that these can't be used for human habitation, I think is important. I do know that we have communicated to our taxpayers through our tax bill stating that these types of developments and buildings are not allowed. But that kind of begs the question, does anybody ever read their tax bill or their tax bill inserts? But I think I'm at a point where I've seen enough of these. I think one by one, we just have to take them, push them into the right department so that they can, as close as possible, comply. But I don't see why we would force undue hardship on this applicant, and I would be okay approving
it. Okay, Member Jarvis.
Yeah, just a further comment. We've seen significantly more serious transgressions of our bylaws over the years on this committee, and by my thinking, this is truly a minor variance by comparison to some of the other stuff we've seen and passed. So, yeah, I think we've spent too much time on this already.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Jarvis, seconded by Member Pretko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A 24-36 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 7008 Severn River Shore to recognize two existing tool sheds located on a freestanding deck, and that the above noted approvals are subject to the following table of conditions. That the minimum interior side yard setback is 3.66 meters. The minimum interior side yard setback is 4.27 meters. The minimum setback between structures is 3.048 meters, and that the maximum accumulated area of the freestanding deck is 83.2 square meters. And one, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that this decision applies only to the existing deck and tool sheds as indicated on attachment 2, attached to and forming part of this decision. Any other variances that may appear in the schedules that are not listed in the written decision are not authorized. And three, that a restrictive covenant be registered on title prohibiting human habitation in the two tool sheds prior to issuance of zoning certificate and building permit. And finally, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 1 year from the date of decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next application is A 24-38 for 4 Island 560. To the planner, please.
Through the chair. The subject lands have an area of 10,157 square meters or 2.51 acres and a frontage of approximately 165 meters on Georgian Bay within Honey Harbor. Majority of the property is forested, with development being concentrated on the northwest side where granite rock and low-lying vegetation dominates the landscape. A detached dwelling, shed, and dock occupy the lands, which are designated waterfront within the district and township official plans. The shoreline contains type 2 fish habitat. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to permit the construction of a sauna in the front yard with a setback of 3 meters from the high water mark, whereas section 4.1.12.5C does not permit a sauna in the front yard and requires a minimum setback of 15 meters from the high water mark. The zoning bylaw permits saunas to have a floor area of 15 square meters and a height of 3.5 meters. The applicant is proposing a sauna with a floor area of 4.16 square meters and a height of 2.59 meters, being significantly smaller. The sauna will be located next to a pocket of natural vegetation, which will screen the sauna and ensure that it is only partially visible to lake users. The small footprint and dark color of the sauna lessen the impact on the surrounding landscape. The intent of provision 4.1.12.5C is to allow for saunas in the front yard on a case-by-case basis to limit the number and massing of buildings in the front yard of waterfront properties, reducing the visual impact of development from the water, and encouraging a balance between built form and natural heritage. Almost the entirety of the property's expansive shoreline is in a natural state, with one dock present and no in-water or dry land boathouses. The sauna is not anticipated to have a negative visual impact and will not create an overdeveloped shoreline. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variances to the zoning bylaw being requested and are recommending approval. Committee can approve or deny the requested variances, and if they require additional information to come to a decision, they may defer the application. Thank you.
Has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from the chief building official stating she has no concerns with the proposal, and one letter was received from the Severn Sound Environmental Association stating they do not have comments but did provide general water level and shoreline information.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? And do they wish to address the committee with any further comments to what the planner offered?
Yes, sir.
All right, please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Brian McNamara, and I'm the owner of the property. We purchased the property in 1987, so 37 years ago. But actually, the family, my wife's family, has owned the island since 1950. On the island, there are 3 independent properties. All are owned by family, and it's family that are using it and have been ever since 1950. Anyhow, that's really the only background I want to give, and I'm here to answer any other questions that you would like.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public present that has any questions for the or comments on the application? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public portion of the application and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Jarvis.
Thank you, through the chair. Just out of curiosity, is this sauna going to be plumbed?
No.
Okay, and then the next question is, I presume it's close to the shore because people will want to run from the sauna to the lake and back. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments? I just have one question again. Is that the only reason for locating the sauna where you're offering, so it's close to run into the water?
I mean, that's certainly part of it. Really, with the location of the cottage, to try to get it back far enough away from the water to be compliant, it would either have to butt up very close to the cottage, or it would be way on the other part of the property, and which would make it not very accessible from the lake and from the good swimming part of the island.
Okay. Member Predko.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I just wanted to clarify, is it a wood-burning sauna or electric? I'm assuming electric, given the size of it.
Yes, it's electric.
So ensuring you run the electricity from your cottage to this sauna is also a factor then?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There any other questions or comments? Okay, I just have, again, one comment. It appears to me, Mr. McNamara, that, prior to getting this sauna, you did do some research and found out what the setbacks were required for a sauna. Then, obviously, you know what they are. So did you talk to planning here at the town?
Well, yes, there was. I had some experience doing a cottage renovation to on one of the other properties that we own, and in applying for the building permit, I realized that we're very close to requiring a planning modification. That suggested to me that when we put in this new sauna or anything else, I better check the planning regulations to ensure that we do meet compliance. So that was really the you know, what happened, and then I contacted the planning committee and went through the website and talked to Shania and got some guidance that way as well.
Okay. And so when it was reviewed by planning, you know, what was the justification for approving variance like this?
Through the chair, to clarify, the applicant did pursue our pre-application consultation process, where staff provided a detailed memo providing copies of applicable planning policies as well as excerpts from the zoning bylaw, and informing him that to seek relief from the zoning bylaw due to the non-complying setback, he would have to pursue the minor variance. Considering the size of the sauna and the rationale for the location, staff were able to review that in comparison as well with our policies and determine that the application does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance. I would also like to add that if the desire is to move the sauna back more, if they're not able to meet the 15 meters and be located near the dwelling, which they need to do to get the electricity. And there's also a 5-meter setback requirement from the sauna to the dwelling that they would have to comply with as well. So as soon as they look into relocating the sauna closer to the dwelling, they have other things that they have to consider in addition to what Mr. McNamara was referring to, which was almost the entirety of that property is forested. So if they were to go inland more, they would likely have to remove some trees, and the sauna no longer becomes as purposeful and usable in those locations.
I visited the site and I noticed on there that, you know, the vegetation is fairly low and that there is roadways connecting to the other cottages that are on there. And anyway, we'd have to go out with a tape and measure, but you know, I guess my point is from the standpoint of the Committee of Adjustment that, you know, we have a bylaw in place that specifies how far back from the shoreline that needs to be, and the purpose of the Committee of Adjustment, if there are situations that arise that would make it difficult, if not impossible, to meet those requirements, then, you know, we're here to provide a vehicle whereby you can make that happen. And my only questions, and the reason for that past question is, you know, did we meet that criteria? And I hear, go ahead.
Through the chair, if I may, I'm just going to reiterate that a test for a minor variance is not that the applicant has to demonstrate a hardship. And the reason for the minor variance process is to request relief from provisions of the zoning bylaw.
There does not need to be a substantive reason for having the Mr. Hazelton, please ask your question.
Yes, thank you. And just, I guess the challenge is if you don't look at your screen, you don't see the digital hand up. But once again, I wanted to offer support for our planning department. I think they've done a good job here. I think one of the characteristics we have on our on the bay, and I think this property is a perfect example of this, is it's kind of like a peninsula. It's an island and it's a peninsula on an island. Putting the thing not in the front yard, given that the entire island shoreline is all front yard, it will be impossible. And so I think what we have to look at is, well, what is the character of the property? And if you can't put the thing in the not front yard, then it's got to be in the front yard. And where is the most reasonable location to put it? And I think our planning department have guided us on a reasonable location. And so as far as I'm concerned, it's something we should be approving and moving on.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Smith, seconded by Member Pretko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A24-38. 1, a sauna in the front yard, whereas section 4.1.12 does not permit a sauna in the front yard. And 2, a sauna having a setback of 3 meters from the high water mark, whereas section 4.1.2 requires a minimum setback of 15 meters from the high water mark. And that the above approvals are subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the proposed sauna is substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you, Mr. McNamara.
Thank you, committee.
Our final resolution, moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Hazelton. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 11:24 a.m. until October 11, 2024 at 10 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion is carried. The meeting